brief introduction of him. Dr. Vikram Patarkin is a chemical environmental engineer with over 3 decades of international experience. He has received US citizenship through recognition of extraordinary ability through sustained national and international acclaim. Dr. Vikram is a founder and CEO of Peace USA, an independent consulting practice providing environmental stewardship strategies and solutions to investor groups and clients around the world. Dr. Vikram has held several leadership positions in the past, including Chief Technology Officer of a renewable energy company, Senior Vice President of a consulting engineering firm, and Director of Process Engineering of an equipment design and manufacturing firm. During the 1990s, he led the Environment and Natural Resources Management consulting practice of Tata Consultancy Service, which is the Asia's largest consulting firm. Dr. Vikram has been nominated on several committees as an expert on nutrient management, energy conservation, and renewable energy. He holds a PhD in environmental engineering from Virginia Tech and a Master of Technology in Chemical Engineering from Nagpur University. He has been an adjunct professor of environmental engineering at the University of Missouri and has also taught graduate students at Pennsylvania State University. He has authored chapters in manuals, peer-reviewed papers, and numerous technical papers. He has conducted training programs and has made conference presentations worldwide. Apart from this technical knowledge, he has some extra activities also that Dr. Vikram follows and actively promotes a lifestyle based on natural plant-based diet for both personal health and the planet's sustainability. He has been a yoga practitioner for 4 decades and teaches yoga regularly to those interested. He is a connoisseur of Hindustani classical music and has organized several classical music programs. He loves cricket and watches it whenever he is able. So, such a diverse personality is with us in today's session. So, let me welcome again to Dr. Vikram, and I hand over this platform to now Dr. Vikram. Please, sir.
Namaste, Dr. Patel. Everyone who is present here, thank you for deciding to spend the next hour with me. I will try to make my speech shorter than I was thinking because we have had a delay, but hopefully you will still have plenty of time to ask questions. I'm going to start presenting right now. So let us see if you can see my screen here. It should say from industrial revolution to the COVID-19 pandemic. What lessons have we learned and where do we need to head? Trying to forward this thing now. So let us see if I can forward this. Okay, so these are the topics I would like to cover. In this presentation, we will talk about the industrial revolution and its effects. Because of the industrial revolution, population has exploded and therefore we've had a tremendous effect on this planet. Nature has warned us in the last couple of years. So we will look at this entire COVID-19 pandemic from a different perspective. What has been the effect of lockdown? Is it going to encourage us to think about sustainable living? Should we think about ruralization as opposed to urbanization, which has brought about many environmental problems? I'll explain to you the concept of eco-village I have been contemplating on for the past couple of years. And then what can we do? You see, we don't have any control over the government, we don't have any control over businesses, but we do have control over our own lives and we have control over our own choices. What can we do? And then some concluding remarks. So let us see if we can finish this in about half an hour. In the late 1700s and early 1800s, as industries started to develop after the invention of the steam engine, or if after the steam engine was perfected. This is an image of the steam engine developed by James Watt. Mechanized manufacturing began. Because of that, industries or industrial clusters came about, and around those industries, people started congregating and living in close quarters. So there were centralized factories, and then population became concentrated around those factories. Therefore, over time, you see, in the last 200 years or so, our population has grown tremendously. There has been an exponential rise in the population. So before 1800, we were not even 1 billion or 100 crores. So since then, you can see how quickly the population has doubled. So from 1 to 2, it took about 123 years. Thereafter, from 2 to 4, it took less than 50 years. And from 4 to 8, again around 50 years. So this is not a great idea from the ecological point of view. From ecological point of view, when one species grows in this manner, then it can be a danger sign. As the population grew, transportation also grew. So personal transportation, earlier we used to walk, then we used to ride animals, then we invented the wheel. After that, the wheel has undergone many iterations. So now we have sports cars and SUVs and things like that. Public transportation has also undergone an evolution, starting from animal driven carts to railways, buses, trams, metros, and high speed rail. And of course, this is only ground transportation. We also have air transportation. Freight transportation has also undergone a revolution, right? Or an evolution, I would say. So initially, we were manually transporting things from one place to another, then through animals, then through tractors, then now tractor trailers. Now we transport through trains as well as through ships. All right. Because of this excessive transportation, this is a photograph from Manila where I've been several times. And early morning or evening time when people are going home, this is the kind of scene you can see. Because of excessive emissions from vehicles, you can develop smog conditions. Okay. To fuel this growth, we have been mining fuel from the earth. The main culprit in global warming, or one of the main things in global warming, is we have mined a lot of coal from underground and then we have burnt it. So when this coal got burned, carbon dioxide was released in the atmosphere. That's a greenhouse gas. It traps heat from the sun. That's why the temperature of the earth has increased over the past 150 years. Look at how the temperature has risen since 1850 to about 1920s and 30s. It was, around the same, given some fluctuations up and down. But since the early 20th century, the temperature has steadily risen. And especially after the Second World War, the temperature has gradually risen by almost a degree, which means the organism called the Earth is now having a slight temperature or a fever. Okay. To fuel our, I would not say need, but human greed, we have cut down a lot of forests. Deforestation has happened throughout the world, all over the world, because of which wildlife species are on the decline. One estimate says that by 2026, most of the wildlife species will become completely extinct. We will see animals, but they will be in the zoos. They will not be in the wild. That's not a good idea. Okay. So the wildlife has also declined from 1970 to 2016. Just see, it has gone down by almost 70-75%. I used to love this comic strip when I was in college. The person who created this is no longer with us, but he used to have phenomenal comments about how we live. One of these strips says, there is this boy called Calvin. He is a kindergartner, so maybe around 4 or 5 years old, and he has a small toy. His name is Hobbes. Hobbes is the tiger. So whenever you see only Calvin and Hobbes in the frame, then the tiger actually talks to him. Okay. Whereas it's actually a stuffed toy. So whenever there is a third person in the frame, if you see Calvin's mother or father, then he is holding that Hobbes as a toy in his hand. But when he is alone with the toy, he talks to him. He thinks that the toy is also talking to him. So it is our own inner self talking to our own inner self, our own mind talking to our intellect, and our intellect talking to the mind, similar to the Krishna Arjuna Samvada in the Bhagavad Gita. All right. So here Calvin says people keep talking about opening more wilderness for development. We seem to understand the value of oil, timber, minerals, and housing, but not the value of unspoiled beauty, wildlife, solitude, and spiritual renewal. So then Hobbes says we need to start putting prices on the priceless. So Calvin says, yeah, if our woods are worth a zillion, jillion, bajillion, think what Alaska is worth. So Alaska is mostly forests. Okay. If you look at nature, you will see these fundamental things going on. Okay. Nature exhibits perfect design. There are no mistakes in nature. There is no such thing called inefficiency in nature. Inefficiency happens only in the processes human beings have designed. So I'm a chemical engineer. So are many of you who are in the audience. The systems we design, the processes we design, they are not 100%. We will design based on 100% efficiency, but then we have to have some fudge factors or design criteria based on which we know that the product is not going to be converted 100% to the, you mean the input is not going to be converted 100% to the product, right? Now, in nature, if we observe healthy ecosystems, they exhibit a biodiversity and balance among species. So no one species will become too predominant. What has happened in the last 150 or 200 years is the human species has become predominant in the ecosystem called the earth. Okay. Another principle is organisms will appear in ecosystems suitable for them, in which they are naturally programmed for survival and propagation, and they also play a beneficial role in the ecosystem. So in the Bhagavad Gita, there is a shlok which says, Annat bhavanti bhutani parjanyadanna sambhava, which means that the ecological condition or the anna or the food for a specific organism appears in the ecosystem before the organism itself appears. So before the baby is born, the mother's body already creates milk. Okay. Now, in the past 150 years, whatever we have done to the earth, nature is now sending us a message through the COVID-19 pandemic, says the UN Environment Chief Inger Anderson. She says, our continued erosion of wild spaces has brought us uncomfortably close to animals and plants that harbor diseases that can jump to humans. So there is a theory this COVID-19 came through wild animals that were being slaughtered and sold in a wet market in Wuhan, China. All right, so if that is really true, why has that happened? Because we have encroached upon forest land and therefore we have gone too close to them. So now some of the viruses that could only be in the wild, they are now starting to jump to humans. So that's not a good thing. Now let's look at this whole scenario from a different perspective. Consider the planet to be one organism, just one body. Just like we have our own body, and within our body we have several parts, like we have hands and legs and stomach and brain and all those things. On this planet, there are many organisms. Human beings just happen to be one other organism. In fact, we are so minuscule. If we were to look at our own numbers versus numbers of other species, then we are nowhere in the picture. We are about 800 crores right now. Okay, 8 billion. We have more bacteria than that in our body. Many times more bacteria than that in our body. Okay. So excessive human activity has led to environmental degradation, which we just saw. Is that really the planet's ailment? And I tend to think yes. Okay. Because the planet has administered a medicine called corona on itself, because of which human activity has slowed down. All non-essential activities have stopped. And therefore, environmental quality has improved. So I'll show you some pictures. This will be very clear to you. We are used to looking at this planet, or we are used to looking at the world from our own perspective. We don't look at the world the way it is. Okay. So again, going back to Calvin and Hobbes, he says, I was reading about how countless species are being pushed towards extinction by man's destruction of forests. Okay. So he says, sometimes I think the surest sign that intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe is that none of it has tried to contact us. Why? Because we have been so dumb. We have not been living according to laws of nature. So we have destroyed nature. So before the pandemic, just see how India Gate in Delhi used to look like on the left. Whereas after the pandemic, within about 2 or 3 weeks, the air quality in that area improved to such an extent that you could see the clear blue sky the way it is supposed to be. Okay. This is on April 1st of 2020. And when was the lockdown implemented in India? 22nd of March. All right. So within a week, the air quality improved. Look at the river Yamuna. Earlier, because of all the pollution that was going into it, all the surfactants, all the soaps, there used to be so much foam on top of Yamuna. After that, within a week, see what the condition is. In Mumbai, in the commercial district, you could see peacocks. Earth is not owned by only humans. It is owned by all organisms. Okay. Look at China. If you look at the picture on the right, as China seeks to control the spread of COVID-19, fewer cars are driving, fewer factories are running, and in some places, skies have become clearer. So in January, the air quality in Northeast China was quite bad, whereas in February, it was much better because they had implemented the lockdown, isn't it? So the lockdown is not necessarily bad for the environment. In fact, it has been great for the environment. You see, this canal in Venice, Italy, used to be buzzing with tourists, but now you can see all these tourist boats are just parked, right? Because of which you could see dolphins. They have reclaimed their space. We had driven them out because of the tourist activity. This is Los Angeles. I've never really seen Los Angeles this clear. I used to go to Los Angeles quite a bit during 2008 and 9. And this is the picture of downtown Los Angeles as you are landing into Los Angeles airport. If you look on your right, this is what you will see, but not this clear. Okay, so this is on April 6th, 2020. Within a couple of weeks of lockdown, this is how clear the air in Los Angeles became. This is another picture somewhere in Europe. Air pollution has sharply fallen. So March 27th, within a week of the lockdown, it was so clear. You see, the environment is capable of assimilating a lot of our follies. Okay, the ability of the environment or a portion of the environment to carry waste material without adverse effects on the environment or on its users is called the assimilative capacity. So this planet, this earth, is quite forgiving. Okay, only if we let it rejuvenate itself. Pollution will occur only when the assimilative capacity is exceeded. So those who are in the environmental field who are attending this webinar, they would understand what this assimilative capacity is. Even in our body, there is an assimilative capacity. So if we by mistake consume something which is not good for the body, then the body will try to get rid of it. If we need to get rid of it immediately, then we'll throw it up. If not, we will have to go to the toilet many times and it will get flushed out. But over time, the body will restore itself. So there is an assimilative capacity of every ecosystem, including our own body. Nature is comprised of 5 fundamental elements. Okay, we call them Pancha Mahabhuta in our tradition. Space is Akasha, air is Vayu, fire is Agni or energy, water means Jala, and earth means Prithvi. So these are the 5 elements of which this entire universe is created. Okay. Now, if we want to live properly in this environment or in this universe, how are we supposed to live? We are supposed to live in a sustainable manner. What is sustainable? Sustainable means we live in such a way now that the future generations are also able to pursue their life's goal the way we are pursuing our life's goal, right? So balanced life in harmony with Mother Nature, that is what we need to pursue. Being respectful of our own symbiotic relationship with ecology. You see, we are not apart from nature. We are a part of nature. We need to understand this. We have to reduce the use of natural and personal resources because in nature, in any ecosystem, no organism will consume anything more than necessary other than Homo sapiens. We keep consuming, 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 consuming. We don't even know where to stop. We don't know whether it's going to bring us happiness or not. In fact, with excessive consumption, it brings misery, not only to others, but also to ourselves. So we have to reduce the ecological or carbon footprint by altering methods of transportation, energy consumption, and diet. So these are the things we need to do to be sustainable. And of course, adhere to the principles of sustainable development, which I just told you that our life should not impact the life of future generations. That is called sustainable living or sustainable development. Because we all want to be well. Everybody wants to be well, right? Who is doing anything here for not being well or for being deliberately unhappy or miserable? Nobody. Everybody is seeking happiness through wellness. And that wellness could be emotional, spiritual, and intellectual. That is at the mental level. And physical means physical body as well as environmental. These are the physical wellness parameters. And then, of course, as a social animal, we have to be financially well. We have to have good occupation, and our social interaction, our social relations have to be good. That is the definition of wellness. So health, wellness, and joy are within us. You see, this is an experience of wellness which we experience from within. For example, we may consider a specific environmental condition to be bad. So just say waste material. All right, somebody was talking yesterday in one of my WhatsApp groups about animal dung or animal waste, right? So there is a 4-letter word for calling that SH and all that, right? So we may consider that to be waste, but for the organisms that consider that to be food, for them it is food. One person's waste can be another organism's food, isn't it? So just because I'm not happy or I'm not well looking at something or by consuming something, every other organism may not be like that, right? So therefore, health and wellness are not dependent upon the things, beings, and conditions around us. Health and wellness happens when we consume only what is appropriate. We consume what is appropriate in an appropriate quantity, and then the joy within is experienced rather than joy being found from the thing or condition we are experiencing or consuming. Okay. This joy or wellness is unfolded through living in harmony with Mother Nature. I'm talking about my own personal experience, so that's why I'm able to hopefully convince you of what I'm saying. Now, you may or may not agree with me, which is okay. I'm happy to disagree with you. If you have different opinions, that's okay. But we still have to listen to each other and we still have to interact with each other, try to learn from each other, and then all move forward. So in Marathi, there is a saying called Ekameka Sahaya Karu Avaghe Dharu Supantha. Means we will all help each other and we will all walk on the good path or the right path. Okay. So after looking at Industrial Revolution, which resulted in urbanization and environmental degradation, these are the questions raised by the 2020 pandemic. Are urban clusters away from nature good for us? Should we rethink development models? Should we not work towards living in harmony with Mother Nature? So should we not reverse the urbanization that we have caused in the last 150 to 200 years? Can we go towards ruralization? Hence, eco-village. I'll explain to you in short what the eco-village means to me. Eco-village is a socially, culturally, economically, and or ecologically sustainable community. So we live deliberately in harmony with nature to reduce our impact on nature. So we try to reduce negative impact on the natural environment through intentional physical design and resident behavior choices. Okay. So the community is designed in an eco-friendly manner, and the people who live in the community are also committed to making sure that the community is thriving in harmony with the environmental conditions around it. Okay? After rapid urbanization in the last 50 years, I think we need to go back to living in harmony with nature and set up what I call eco villages. This is not a new idea. Many people around the world are thinking in this manner, which will allow reverse urbanization and provide opportunities to live in harmony with nature. These ecologically aware communities will be regenerative, responsible, sustainable, built on the values of harmony and compassion. That's how these eco villages need to be developed. Okay. These can have some of these features. Eco-friendly housing. So make sure that the buildings are constructed from eco-friendly materials. Farming can be organic. There could be personal farms as well as community farms from where the food can come directly to our table. Okay. Water will be recycled and reused. Okay. So this is a picture of how an eco village can be developed symbiotically with the elements of nature. Right. Energy should be renewable so that we don't have a carbon footprint. You see, we live in 21st century now. We cannot go back to Stone Age. We need to have modern communication facilities. We should be able to live the way we have been living, but we have to also reduce the impact on the environment. So far, we have not really considered that very seriously. But now, when we do that, there is no choice but to go to renewable energy. Okay? We have to be recycling and reusing everything. So these are the 7 R's of sustainability at a village or an eco village that has been developed near Mumbai. It's called the Govardhan Eco Village. So they talk about these 7 R's: rethink, refuse, reduce, repurpose, reuse, recycle, and whatever you cannot recycle, then you can compost it, rot. And then it can be converted into something more beneficial. So if you have organic waste, then it can be composted, and then that compost can become the food for the vegetables that we grow in our garden. So then the circle is complete. So this is called sustainability. So there is no waste. Okay. There will be dedicated green areas, including forests, where ecosystems can thrive, where wildlife can come back. You see, one tree can become the source of sustenance for many organisms, including birds. Okay. Model educational institutions focused on the curiosity of the mind and aspiration of greater good. So the eco village can be also a learning center, or it can have a dedicated learning center where people can visit, where people can learn about how to live in harmony with nature, and the residents of the eco village can share their experience with people who want to live in this manner. So hopefully in the next 50 years or so, we will have many such eco villages all over the world, and people will be living more in harmony with nature. It should, as I said, have modern communication facilities. Just because we are living in harmony with nature doesn't mean that we should not be communicating like this. In fact, this idea exchange right now is happening because of modern communication facilities, but they can be run on solar power or renewable energy. Here is a smart enterprise eco village concept. It can have an innovation and incubation center as well. Okay. So the features in this particular eco village happen to be land region or land regeneration, housing, which is green power, farming is organic, economy is local, means a lot of things are exchanged within the village or within nearby villages, which has been happening in our country for the past many years. Okay. But more recently, it has got degraded from what it used to be. But we can re-establish that consciously and make sure that all of us can enjoy a quality of life without being away from nature. Okay. Financial inclusion as well as culture. So all these things are taken into account, and we ensure that everything is sustainable in harmony and in cooperation. Okay. There can also be community centers for health, well-being, and spiritual pursuits. Or even if we want to have a talk like this in a small group of maybe 50 or 100, there should be a place where people can gather and contemplate on such things. So this is a village near Chennai that is being developed. Let me see if this video will run. Hopefully it will run and you will be able to see this. Okay. All right. So are you seeing this? I'm hoping that you are able to see this. I'm going to try to run this video now. Okay, so as soon as it loads up, we'll try to see it. It's only about 2 minutes, not too long. And this is the last thing I'm going to present. After that, the speech will be over completely. All right. Let's go ahead.
Where is home? Is it the city I live in, with my family of four in an apartment we're paying through our noses to keep? This investment will take time to pay off. Hopefully by the time. Or is home where our parents live? Our safe havens, so to speak. I'm not sure. I remember as a child traveling on the train.
Mr. Vikram, we are not able to see the video.
Okay, so let me see if I can share the other screen now. I was hoping to be able to share this. Otherwise, what we can do is take a look at this link and then you can watch this video on your own. It says how an eco village can be developed with a lot of these ecological principles. It's being developed right now halfway between Chennai and Pondicherry. In Pondicherry itself, there is a beautiful eco village called Sadhana Forest. I think you should go visit that sometime whenever you have a chance. Okay, so now what can we do? Because as I said, we don't really have control over governments, we don't have control over businesses, but our choices can force businesses and force governments to undertake eco-friendly programs. Okay. Even though we don't have any control over businesses and governments, we do have control over our own life. So therefore, we should live simply and we should live at the need level. We should not be hoarding things unnecessarily. Okay. We should eat well, but we should eat to live, not live to eat. And as much natural food as possible. As you can see in this plate I'm showing here, most of my food is fruits and nuts. I don't show any nuts in this picture, but I do eat a lot of nuts and seeds. All right. Exercise regularly. Before this program, I had a 1 hour yoga session. Help others as much as possible. And then meditate and contemplate. Okay, like we are doing right now. This I consider to be a meditation session. Okay? When we eat more naturally and when we eat mostly fruits or a large quantity of our diet or large proportion of our diet is fruits and nuts, then the farmers are encouraged to plant fruit trees. And large fruit trees will provide shade, provide habitat for birds, and help conserve groundwater. So these are the environmental impacts of our own food choices. Okay. Natural
Sorry
food.
to interrupt, Dr. Vikram.
Yes.
But are you sharing your screen or because we are
Yeah,
not
I
able
was
to
sharing my
see any
screen. You're
screen?
not able to share. You're not able to see my screen at all.
No, no. It is not visible. Earlier it was. Now after your video, it has got.
Okay, so just 1 second. Thank you for letting me know because I was under the impression you are able to see my screen. All right, so I'm sharing this again. Let me go back to the earlier screen. So you were seeing this screen when we lost the video, right? So thereafter, I showed you this screen where I told you about how we live simply at the need level, not hoard unnecessarily, eat well, eat to live, but not live to eat, exercise regularly, help others as much as possible, and meditate and contemplate, right? These were the 6 points I talked about. Then I was going to show you this slide where large fruit trees provide shade, provide habitat for birds, and help conserve groundwater. So these are the environmental impacts of our food choices. It has a very low carbon footprint. You see, eating meat or eating animal-based diet has a very large carbon footprint. Compared with that, a plant-based diet has a much lower carbon footprint. And if you eat only natural, then the carbon footprint is the lowest. Now, if we demand fruit, then the farmers are incentivized to plant fruit trees, which will give you all these environmental benefits. And also for the farmer, from the farmer's point of view, he gets long-term income for relatively low maintenance. So large fruit trees don't require that much babysitting. A seasonal crop will require much more attention, right? So to learn these principles and how we can inculcate these principles in our daily lives, we have started an initiative called Sattva. Okay. So the website is sattv.life. Everybody is welcome to take a look at it, see what we are doing. We inculcate these disciplines and these principles in the minds of the participants who go through our programs, and they have a phenomenal experience of life. So their life experience gets transformed through these disciplines and through the lifestyle changes we help them achieve. Okay, so everybody is welcome to take a look at that, and by all means, you can even sign up for a free counseling session so you can learn more about what we are doing and see if it will be helpful to you. In short, or in summary, industrial revolution has brought about many modern conveniences. There is no doubt about that. Okay, our life has become very, very convenient, but environmental quality has also gradually degraded. That we cannot deny. Okay, Corona or COVID-19 pandemic is a serious pandemic, but it's not necessarily all bad, because if we have learned our lessons from this, then it's not a bad thing. Can we change our perspective and look at our own life as a part of nature and look at us from nature's point of view rather than we look at nature from our perspective? Can we rethink human settlement models and live in harmony with nature? Ultimately, all of us want to be happy. So I hope and wish that everybody achieves fulfillment in this lifetime, in this body, on this planet. But we all must work together towards that. So thank you very much for listening to me patiently. I live in Pennsylvania. My mobile and WhatsApp number is given here. By all means, copy that. You're welcome to contact me and see what fun things we are doing. Great. I'm going to stop presenting now. So has the presentation stopped now? I guess it has.
Yeah. Yeah.
If anybody has any
Thank you.
questions, then
Yeah.
you're most welcome. Please,
Dr. Vikram.
let's unmute one by one and then we can ask questions so that I can answer those. Thank you very much.
So session is open now for the questions. Any questions from the audience, please?
Hello. Can
Yes,
I talk?
namaskar, Dr. Prakash. Yes, please.
Namaskar. Yeah, wonderful presentation and very good thoughts. In fact, Mahatma Gandhi ji in 1930 to 1940, he was advocating naturopathy and other aspects of nature also. And also he was trying to tell that people should go to the villages. And the eco-village was his idea that time. But of course, nobody took it further. But now it will be necessary. And I think within next 10 years, this will come into existence. Thanks for the thoughts and thanks for the wonderful session. Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Prakash. Appreciate your coming here. Kirtish Jain has raised his hand. So why don't we unmute Kirtish and then we can take his question, please. Kirtish, can you unmute yourself
Sir.
and talk?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. Sir, I just wanted to know, like, if you have a piece of land, like, is it, can we start an eco-village and what is the process for that? if I want to create an eco village?
So great question. We think that the minimum piece of land for a model eco village could be about 10 acres. If it is more than that, then it will be even better. So I do have details about the eco village I have in mind or I've been contemplating on for the past several months. You are welcome to contact me separately and we can talk about that. But I think
Okay.
if we can implement all of these principles I was talking about, then if we have a land size of about 10 acres, there can be many families who can live in that 10-acre land. If it is if it is more than that, then that's of course better because you can achieve better scale. Thank you, Kirtish.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Thanks.
All right. Then I see some other hands here. Rajendra Ugvekar wanted to ask a question. Rajendra, can you please unmute yourself and ask your
Yeah,
question?
yeah. Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sir. The eco village is a good concept, but I am a little bit doubtful about it because, sir, we have got the industrial activities and particularly the chemical industries. The lot of pollution is being on the cards, and where that can be put in all these environmental issues, because we cannot stop the industrialization because of COVID. No matter that we are forced to stop all the economic activities, but in regular schedule how it can be incorporated, that is my doubt, sir.
Great. So thank you. That's a great
Yeah,
question. And in fact, this is
yeah,
exactly what we should have learned in the past 1.5 years.
yeah,
What
yeah.
we have done is we have stopped non-essential activities.
Hmm, hmm.
And by stopping non-essential activities, our life may have been impacted to some extent, but we have lived happily. In fact, many of us, most of us, have
Yeah.
lived better in the last 1.5 years than before that.
Hmm,
Okay.
hmm. Yeah.
Not only have we lived better, but environmental quality has improved.
Hmm,
So
hmm.
why don't we stop these non-essential activities once and for all? Okay,
Hmm,
and we
hmm,
continue
hmm.
to do only essential activities. I'm not saying that
Yeah,
essential activities should stop.
yeah, yeah.
Also, when we are developing industries, when we are developing products, then we
Hmm,
need to consider the environmental and climate impact of these products before
hmm.
these products begin to be produced also. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's why we have in our country or in many other countries, there is a process of environmental impact assessment before a factory is
Hmm,
allowed to be opened, isn't it?
hmm,
So
hmm,
that
hmm.
process needs to be followed rigorously and
Hmm.
not because of short-term gains. Okay, so
Yes, yes.
this is what my recommendation would be, that we consider all of these things together and
Yeah,
holistically before we
yeah.
progress further. So again, you and I have the power to
Uh,
force the industry, to force the government
hmm,
to take steps
hmm.
in that direction if we make the right choices. So that's what I would
Yeah,
recommend. Instead of changing the world, let's try to change ourselves first, and then the world will change. About that, there is no
yeah, yeah.
doubt. So thank you for this
Thank,
question. Now I
thank
will
you, sir.
ask
Thank
Dr.
you for
Jivanlal
your
Gandhi.
explanation.
You're most welcome. Now I will ask Dr. Jivanlal Gandhi to ask his question. He has been raising his hand. Dr. Gandhi, please.
Yeah, I would like to give my comment. It was a great talk, eye-opener talk. What we have learned from COVID-19. Actually, this is the right perspective of looking at such sort of calamities instead of taking them otherwise and spending a lot of energy. Return to nature doesn't mean that we have to go to jungle. And Mahatma Gandhi has said that return to nature is the only way if you want to happy. So without disturbing the natural environment and taking
Rajendra,
care
can you
of
please
it.
mute yourself? I'm sorry, Dr. Gandhi. Rajendra, can you go back on mute, please? Thank
So,
you. Dr. Gandhi, please go ahead.
uh, so if we take care of our own internal environment, we'll be protecting our health, and we'll be able to do some evolutionary work. And side by side, we should not ignore the outer environment also. So I think the solutions and the way it has explained was really great. This is what we need. Otherwise, we cannot escape such pandemics and all these calamities. So it was great talk. I appreciate highly. It was personal health as well as environmental health. Very well explained.
Thank you, Dr. Gandhi. Dr. Gandhi has been my mentor and an inspiration for me for my entire life. So whatever natural food lifestyle I have learned, he has been a pioneer in that area for the last 50, 60 years. By all means, learn more about him, learn more about what we are doing. It is exactly 8:30 on my clock, so I'm going to stop here. If anybody wishes to contact me, you are most welcome. Thank you so much for patiently listening to all this. Appreciate it. Have a good evening, those who are in Bharat, and have a wonderful day, those who are in America. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
You are most
Dr.
welcome.
Vikram. Yeah, thank you for accepting our invitation to deliver such a nice talk. It was quite interesting and with reference to various problems with the environment, what is sustainable living, and you have explained it with real-time examples. Then you have said light on health and wellness along with the eco-village concept and how to live in harmony with nature. And also you have explained about that 7 hours of sustainability, because normally we use that 4 hours are there, reuse, reduce, recycle and all. But here we have seen that it is 7 hours if we want to achieve the sustainability. So that is really great knowing. And also you have said about how we can move to smart enterprise. So without compromising our way of living, how we can become sustainable or how we can go for sustainable living. That was quite an interesting part of the talk. And what we can do so that we can have a good environmental and social impact, ultimately to reduce the carbon footprint. So it was really an eye-opening talk for all of us, and we hope that we all will do something which will reduce the footprint, because even in my energy conservation talks also I always say that we have to start with our own selves, that we have to start switching off the lights first so that we can conserve the energy. So similarly it applies if we want to go for the sustainable living. So thank you very much. Thank you.
You are most welcome. Have a nice day.
Namaskar, Doctor.
Namaskar. We can stop the recording now, please.
Yeah.
I think they probably need to start the next session. So I don't know, Dr. Patel, are we still allowed to just talk to people informally? You can stop the recording, please. Whoever is recording.
Yeah, Dr. Sanjay, please stop the recording.
Yes.
Bola, Dr. Prakash, you can speak.
नाही छान झाला आजचा पण प्रोग्राम वेगळा होता थोडा and I could get some more points from your talk.
Thank you.
You know, I am also having that inclination towards nature and using very naturopathic things.